Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a proud member of the Gutierrez Flight, a flight that gets its namesake from Sergeant Robert Gutierrez, an Air Force combat controller, one of 12 airmen to receive the Air Force Cross since 2001, an absolute American hero, and an all-around certified badass.
Sergeant Gutierrez was working a meter reader when he witnessed the events of 9/11 and immediately quit his job and attempted to join the military. Initially, he failed the swim portion of the pass test. That didn't discourage him and begged the lifeguards at his local pool to teach him to swim more efficiently. 30 days later, Sergeant Gutierrez passed the test and was ready to leave for basic training.
After multiple years of training and 2 deployments to Afghanistan, Sergeant Gutierrez was about to go on his most dangerous mission yet. On October 5, 2009, Gutierrez and the Army Special Forces team he was attached to set out in the middle of the night on a kill or capture mission for a high-value target coalition forces had been chasing for the previous 6 years.
The team started taking fire almost immediately after breaching the wall surrounding the target compound. The Taliban forces were well aware they were being hunted and were well protected. Armed insurgents manned the rooftops inside their compound, surrounded by a 20-foot wall. The narrow, improvised explosive device-laden roads made it almost impossible to enter the village.
Gutierrez and nearly every member of the team was injured in some form or fashion. But what happens next is best told by Sergeant Gutierrez himself.
Hog flight is less than 5 minutes out. I'm doing an AO update. I'm like, awesome, because I can't talk that much.
Right.
It's actually, it was really straining to try to talk. I'm like, damn, I couldn't leave it, So
tell me about the A-10s when you directed them in for the Danger Close Strafe.
Mm-hmm. So he checks in. I get a sit rep with him. I talk to him, and I said, hey, tell me what you see. And he goes, I have a large amount of fighters on the rooftop, and then they're all stacked up on the wall to the east to you. And I'm going to request I'm requesting a high-angle strafe 30mm guns on this target. And he goes, Roger. He didn't really necessarily know where we were at, where the Eagles were at. And I talked to the team leader, and hey, sir, I'm like, Ryan, I'm like, hey, the only way, I was like, what do you want to do? And he goes, drop a bomb on it. I'm like, can't do that. Why not? And a team sergeant that's in charge of NCYC is like, put a damn bomb on it. I'm like, if we put a bomb on that, you'll kill us all. All of us will be dead. And he was to the point where he was like really angry because we're taking other casualties and stuff like that, and guys are getting wounded. And I'm like, if we put a bomb on there, it'll kill us all. He's like, what about a rocket? I'm like, no. I'm like, our best chance? I was like, you trust me? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, our best chance is a 30mm gun strafe, high-angle strafe. I go, guns on this. And he goes, you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I guess. No, but I'm like, no. I go, that is our best chance. I go, we're doing the escalation of force. If we don't survive this, I'm like, then we can go with a rocket. I go, but we got to go what's effective. I go, this is the most effective thing we can do. And he was like, do it. I'm like, okay, I need your initials. And he kind of like paused, and I'm like, this is Danger Close. And this is the first time for him where he was doing an actual Danger Close strike. And he goes, how close? And I'm like, less than 10 meters, sir. And he was like, what? And I'm like, sir, like 20 feet. And he was like, he paused. Because I'm like on my knee trying to hold my gear and everything. And I'm still like, I have no balance really as easy. And I'm like, looking at him face to face, and he goes, do it. He's like, RVK. I'm like, all right. So I look back out, and my helmet's like all crooked and all this stuff, and I'm like, man, this is really bad. Thinking to myself, I'm really thinking to myself, I hope this A-10 pilot is on it today. I hope he had his Wheaties,
And did he?
He sure did. Because I passed it up, and he goes, I say, hey, we're proceeding with 9 line number 2, Bravo. This target, go through the sequence real quick. We confirmed it. I was like, he goes, he reads it back, and then he goes, hey, distance from target to closest friendlies. I'm like, less than 10 meters. And he comes back, and he goes, Jaguar, say again. I was like, less than 10 meters. And he goes, say again. I'm like, less than 10 meters. I was like, currently right now, I can see the first target I see is 20 feet away from me. 20 to 25 feet. And he goes, I'm gonna need ground force commander's initials. I'm like, RVK. I just came back right, RVK, and he goes, RVK. He's like, Romeo Victor Kilo? I'm like, that is correct, Romeo Victor Kilo. I'm like, Jaguar 3-4 is requesting a high angle gun strafe, 30mm guns on that target. I was like, requesting a southwest to northwest running heading. I was like, all Eagles are in target building Alpha. This is gonna be split basically Alpha and Bravo. I was like, do you need a mark? And he was like, yes. He's like, if able. And I was like, all right, match Sparkle. So took my IR pointer, pointed it with my good hand, this hand, because I'm still trying to pull security down the window because I'm laying down, still shooting stuff. So I pull it out, I look, I've got like one nod down. I'm like, right there. And he goes, and I can hear him, and he goes, wow. He goes, contact Sparkle. He's like, visual friendlies. And I was like, Roger, I got to match Sparkle. I was like, we're good. I go, your tally target, visual friendlies. And he goes, tally target, visual friendlies in from the southwest in 30 seconds. And I was like, Roger, 30 seconds, continue. So he comes in, and I tell her, I'm like, 30 seconds, get your heads down. And I'm telling Mike, I'm looking at my buddy Mike, and Mike is all this time, like, he's got my kit completely open, and he's like going to work like a mad scientist on me, like stuffing me with all kinds of.
And you're shooting.
And I'm shooting, and
talking.
I'm like talking, and I'm like, I can't believe this is going on. He's getting kind of frustrated because he couldn't get the bleeding to stop because he was pushing the hyphen seals.
Right.
I don't know if you know what hyphen seals are. Hyphen seals is basically, it's a compression seal that you put on the body to prevent any kind of blood loss and things like that. So instead of just, he's usually packing just like one, he's putting 4 on me just to patch me up to get my bleeding to stop on my major wound, because we haven't even found my entrance wound. We just know where the exit's at. So this is all going on. I'm like pointing, and I'm like 30 seconds, and he's like, what? And I'm like, 30 seconds, he's coming in guns hot. And he was just like, holy shizer. And he looks back, he's on his knee, and he's got a white light on. My medic was like hands down the best medic I've ever worked with. A, because he saved my life. And and B, he was just really good. He's really passionate about his work. So in a tactical situation, you never go white light. You just don't. But he had such a hard time getting my stuff, he went white light. And when he went white light to work on me, we were just getting hammered. The wall behind us was getting hammered and just getting peppered. And he's still working on me regardless. So
how did the A-10s do?
Oh, he comes in, guns hot, and he's like, hey, I'm in hot, less than 10 seconds. And he's waiting for a clearance, and I finally give him the clearance. And he just says, God bless you, boys. He's like, keep your heads down. And, just on target.
When the helicopter arrived, Gutierrez was taken to Bagram Airfield, then Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany, then finally Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C. The gunshot wound had resulted in 2 broken ribs, a broken scapula, a softball-sized hole in the CCT's back, a collapsed lung, and multiple blood infections, according to the Air Force. He also had a ruptured eardrum from the Danger Close strafing runs. But after 19 months, 3 chest tubes, 3 blood transfusions, and 7 surgeries, Gutierrez was back to his old self.
In 2011, Staff Sergeant Robert Gutierrez, now Senior Master Sergeant Gutierrez, was awarded the Air Force Cross for his extraordinary heroism while engaged in military operations against an opposing foreign force.
Thank you for your service, Sergeant Gutierrez.